big ball. Going for the big shot, and he hits it.
That's batted into the air, intercepted, and the Bears are going to win it.
There is a lot to kind of go over here. We're back after a 6-day hiatus, I think. I was traveling between Thursday and Saturday/Sunday, but we are back. Welcome to the Halas Beat, brought to you by the Bear Report. I'm Usayd Koshul. He's Nick Whalen. Check us out on Twitter at Usayd Koshul, @_Nick Whalen, and at Halas Beat. I don't know about you, dude, but I was sitting at a stoplight this morning, rainy day, and I'm like, we are going to have to discuss the Joe Thuney extension at some point when I was formulating ideas for the show. Schedule obviously dropped. We know what days and times the Bears are playing. The crazy Caleb Williams article. So it sounds like there's been a lot of stuff that we've missed over the last, 4 to 5 days at this point, I'm guessing. But how are you first off?
I'm doing great, man. I made a post about this, and we can talk maybe briefly about the Caleb stuff, but like, y'all, I'm focused on the Ben Johnson led Bears, and that's it. Like the Flus and Nagy and Fox and record they used to have with the Packers, or the amount of quarterbacks they've had start forever. Like, I'm done with all of that. Like, that stuff literally has no meaning on what Ben Johnson and Dennis Allen and the future Bears have. You could talk a little bit last year in terms of like how people played and project that moving forward, but like everything's going to be new. People aren't satisfied with the O-line. The O-line is literally going to be new, y'all. And we'll talk about Tuni here in a minute, but like that's what I'm focused on. The Caleb stuff, man, when it came out, I read it and I was like, is this new news? Like, don't you remember like the draft season? Carl and Caleb, they talked about, or the rumor talked about they were looking at different options. There's nothing wrong with looking at options, like when you go to look at a house, you look at big, you look at small, you look at like far away, close by, like you look at all of your options. And then them not watching film with him, I'm not sure that's a surprise with the turnover and coaching staff and how bad the coaching was, and like none of it was a surprise to me. That's why I'm surprised it got so much hype. It's like it already happened. It would be like, I don't know, the Bears had a really fast player and like, wow, this guy's so fast on film. Then he runs at the combine, like, look how fast he is. It's like, he was already fast.
It is. So I read the article, and by the way, I was in transit to my location when that whole thing dropped, and I was like, all right, listen up. This is cool, but 99.9% of stuff that was said, I already knew. The only part that was completely new to me was him possibly wanting to go ahead and play for the Minnesota Vikings, which I don't think I necessarily blame him, considering some of the work that Kevin O'Connell has done with a lot of these quarterbacks over the years, because the reality is called how it is. Kevin O'Connell's never really had a consistent quarterback. He went from Kirk Cousins for 1 to 2 years to Sam Darnold to was supposed to be J.J. McCarthy, but then Sam Darnold pops off, partly because J.J. McCarthy gets injured.
Don't forget about the Josh Dobbs saga. Remember that little stint?
Yeah, Josh Dobbs. So I think right now, if I was a NFL quarterback and I had to make a list of coaches that I would want to play for, head coaches, yeah, I get Andy Reid would be the top of my list, but Kevin O'Connell and Sean McVay would be a close number 2. This is not me hating, but Matt LaFleur really would not be on that list to begin with. And the reason being is because, again, as I said, I think in our last episode or 2 episodes ago, he's probably the most underachieving of all the current head coaches in the league that have been in their current position 3+ years at this point, which I get there's not a lot of them, but there's 2 guys that come to mind, Matt LaFleur and Zach Taylor. But again, Zach's situation I think is more unique. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And then like also they talked about the, them hesitating because of the Bears' history at quarterback and all this stuff. It's like, yeah, we talk about it all the time. So like them talking about it, apparently it's news. Some of this stuff I was just like, dude, this is like, if all of us were talking, like, let's say, let's say you're a big quarterback prospect, right? Like you're like the stud, you're a Heisman Trophy winner, you give me number 1 pick. It's like, man, where do we want to go? And it's just in an article. It's like, yep, okay, should I go here? No, let's go to this guy who develops quarterbacks well. And then it's like, oh man, this team hasn't gone very well. And then talking about, well, I wonder if we can make more money if we don't go within the CBA. Like, it's just stuff people would look through options. I don't know. To me, it's a lot of non-news in my opinion.
And part of the interesting dynamic here is that Caleb doesn't have an agent. The dad is basically the agent, but Caleb doesn't have like a certified NFL PA agent. And so that creates this dynamic in terms of it usually goes player, agent in the middle, and then team. Now the agent's supposed to act as like the quote unquote mediator, but again, when your agent is technically your dad and the guy who is representing everyone and everything about your football / business side of things is your dad, I mean, there's going to be a lot of concerns that pop up, which little bit of a fun fact about my trip here as we talk about Caleb. So saw his high school fields during my trip, which is actually pretty cool. Also, since we decided to drive, I drove by, we were in southern Pennsylvania at one point, decided to drive by Jaquan Brisker's hometown as well, which was little cool. All right. So a lot of good stuff there. But then I also sort of went to what is Jaden Daniels' backyard in terms of where he plays and will be playing in the future. I will let our listeners hopefully figure out what that is. But anyways, enough with the Caleb article, because that is just something to me that was so sort of, I mean, let's call it how it is, dude. 1 to 2 weeks after rookie minicamp, it was slow. So there was just this news cycle that needed to sort of happen. I think the highlight of Bears OTAs is Joe Thuney finally getting the extension. Now, a couple things about the OTAs here. So we're recording this on Tuesday, May 20th. The Bears do have OTAs on the 20th, the 21st, and the 22nd. It's a 3-day window right now, which is phase 1 of the OTAs. It's going to linger into parts of end of May, June, and then mandatory minicamp before that summer break. For those of you guys that are listening to this on a Tuesday night / a Wednesday morning, the schedule that was sent out to us was the fact that it's 1 day this week that is going to be open. So if you're looking for more Bears news and nuggets, the Bears are going to be speaking tomorrow. All right. That's when open media and Zach Pearson's going to be there. But the Thuney extension to me is interesting because he was set to make $16 million this year on the 1-year deal that he had basically the contract transferred over when the Chiefs traded him to the Bears. His cap hit this year is $8 million. So the Bears basically created about $8-ish million in cap space when you look at it. It is overall, I believe, a 3-year, $51 million deal, and he's got $33.5 million guaranteed for 2025 and 2026. So I'm not a big cap guy, obviously. I know this is more so your forte than it is mine. We've got to get Brad Spielberger on the show sometime, but this is, I think, overall a really healthy extension that had been in the works for weeks. And I understand the Bears have Drew Dahlman and Jonah Jackson. To me, though, Drew Dahlman's the undisputed leader of this offensive line.
Ooh, I would say Joe Thuney's my leader. So interesting. That's fine. We can have debate there. But as you said, like this is $17.5 million is the average over 3 years. And that's if you keep him for 3 years. I know he's going to be 33 in November, but he's basically guaranteed to be a Bear the next 2 years. So 2025, 2026, then the guarantee money kind of runs out. But he's been an all-pro each of the last 3 years in terms of first team or second team. And it was first team the last 2 years, y'all. So you get an all-pro player for $17.5 million this year. Let's say he drops down, Usayd. Let's say the age catch up to him, and he's just a good player in 2026 at $17.5 million. With the cap rising, that's probably pretty good. And then let's say he's above average in 2027 at $17.5 million. That's still a good contract. So to me, like it's all good. And a little insight, I was kind of talking to a Chiefs, kind of similar to us. I wouldn't say a beat reporter, but someone that's really big into Chiefs, and they have a podcast and write. And they said he's more of a quiet guy, but in terms of like pass protection, like he's going to be Caleb's best friend. He's really good at helping out. So he's really good at helping out his center, left tackle, calling things out because he's seen so much of it. But then also in terms of helping out those young guys. So all the way around, y'all, like having Joe Thuney here, and I'm not sure if you said it, Usayd, or someone else, but so if I'm stealing your tweet right here, don't get mad. But Joe Thuney's saying yes to Chicago. Joe Thuney came here from the Chiefs, winning many Super Bowls, losing some Super Bowls as well, won Super Bowls with New England, came to Chicago, y'all. And I know we have the PTSD, right? So we have to get over this, like the history of the Bears. Saw what's going on with Ben Johnson, Ryan Poles, the current roster, And he's like, yeah, I want to sign for 2 more years here. Because he easily could have said no. It's like, nope, I'll get traded there. I'll play my 1 year that I have to. And then I can walk in free agency and sign anywhere else. He decided to stay. And to me, I think that's really, really telling from what a successful veteran is saying about the Bears this year and in the future.
I want to clarify my last statement. So I do see Drew Dahlman as being a leader, but I think the undisputed leader, as in the top dog on this O-line, is without a doubt Joe Thuney. That's what I kind of meant to say. But again, when you're recording with someone like you get super fired up about things. But okay, so the best part of this extension, I think, is this, and I've got it pulled up on Over the Cap, but it's just like, as of this morning, before this extension went through, in terms of left guards, right, Joe Thuney his APY was $16 million a year. The highest paid left guard in the league is Landon Dickerson at $21 million a year. Now, obviously, this is a value that's going to kind of go and fluctuate, but as it stands with the current numbers, so based on just the 1 year deal, Joe Thuney was basically set to make top 5 guard money. With him making $8 million now, I believe that pushes him down to like that 11 to 15-ish range. So his guaranteed money is obviously still there, which is the money the Bears are for sure going to pay him. The other $8 million, because it is a 3-year, $51 million deal, the Bears are paying him $8 million this year. And then on top of that, they're going to go ahead and they're going to, I believe, pay him $9 million next year, or that's a number that's going to significantly jump up. But it is a very, quote-unquote, team-friendly deal here for this team, which I honestly think you need, considering the current extensions that Ryan Poles has been so willing to sort of dish out. And one of the things here that has to be mentioned is that Joe Thuney's now under contract through 2027. Drew Dahlman signed a 3-year deal. He's under contract through 2027. Jonah Jackson under contract through 2027 as well. So the Bears have their projected interior under contract through at least 2027, which is good because if I'm being honest, like the last couple of years in terms of having bodies, the tackles have not been the problem for the Bears. The interior has just really been the issue. There's been no consistency at center or either guard positions. Now you have that locked up, which is, again, another priority that the Bears had this offseason. The next big question, though, I think is that how does this change the outlook of the entire offensive line? Well, I think with Ozzy Trapilo, the writing's on the wall for Braxton Jones. I don't think it's on the wall for Karan Amagaji because Karan can obviously play tackle or guard, so we have to give Karan a lot of time to sort of develop. Darnell Wright's the next guy that I think is going to get extended on this offensive line. And for anyone who's sitting here saying, oh, well, Joe Thuney got his money, Drew Dahlman has his money, Jonah Jackson has his money, now you want to extend Darnell Wright? I mean, isn't this the issue that we've had with the Bears, is that they can't find a consistently good O-line, and then they don't pay those guys anyway? So why would you not want Darnell Wright to be the next big contract extension that this team hands out?
100% with you. And also, like, this team has struggled to draft and offer guys second contracts that are worth it. So, yeah, I don't think we're in the business of just like letting good players leave. Another reference, because you were talking about other guards, Aaron Banks signed with the Green Bay, y'all. 4 years, average of $19.25 million per year over those 4 years. And it's not backloaded either. So like the last year of the deal is worth 20.7. So it's not like the last year is worth, crazy amount that the first 3 years are good and they can get out. So to me, if you can get Joe Thuney for what, 2-ish, 1.8 less than Aaron Banks, and he's an all-pro player. I know he's older. I get that part of it, y'all. But like, I just think it's an absolute steal. The one thing that you'd mentioned in terms of like saving $8 million off of his current contract, I know some of that they needed to get a little flexibility to sign the draft picks and for in-season moves. That's my gut of what it is. I mean, I know people joke about got to sign Nick Chubb because he's been locked away in the basement at Halas Hall and all that kind of stuff. But it could be to sign a running back, could be to sign a safety, etc. Do you think there's any big move coming, or do you think it's going to be minor moves moving forward for this year?
See, it's tough to say. And I was texting back and forth with someone this morning as well as yesterday in terms of, okay, when this Tuni move does go down, What do you think ends up happening? Because I've kind of known for weeks that this is a move that was going to happen. Now, my question, obviously, I think is this: is that in what context of a big move are we talking? Because if you start playing process of elimination here, obviously the Bears are not adding anyone at quarterback or offensive line at this point. They are not going to go ahead and add another receiver. Tight ends out of the picture. The only big move that I see the Bears making would be pass rusher. But then again, it's just like Trey Hendrickson's the name that everyone seems to look at now. Someone asked me this morning, hey, is this a Khalil Mack 2.0 situation all over again? Where because the Bears drafted a quarterback, fired the head coach, hired an offensive-minded coach, had a really good offseason for basically the second straight year. I don't see this as being a Khalil Mack 2.0 situation. And here's why. Because when the Bears had traded for Khalil Mack, he was going into his fifth season at that point. That was 2018. He was a 2014 draft pick. The key thing to understand with him is that he was looking for a big second contract to really lock up financial security for the next basically 5 years through 2024. Okay. So that's what was happening with Khalil Mack. Trey Hendrickson, on the other hand, and again, I'm not saying the Bears are in on Trey Hendrickson, but I think 31 other teams around the league are monitoring the situation. I will put it that way, okay? The thing with Trey Hendrickson is Trey Hendrickson's ultimately looking for his third contract at this point. Trey Hendrickson's also 30 years old. Khalil Mack was in his mid-20s when he got the big extension with the Bears. There's a hell of a difference in terms of age alone between your mid-20s and 30s. Don't mean to sound ageist, but there is a big difference. The other big thing I think to really keep in mind here is that when it comes to Trey Hendrickson, because of the way he's been treated, he's going to have a handful of demands in terms of his next team. He may ultimately say, yeah, we're so close to success in Cincinnati that I want to sign with a team that I believe is going to be a contender. Now, from the Cincinnati perspective, the Bears are the ultimate wild card. And the reason being is because do they have a tough schedule on paper? Yeah. But if you're a team like Cincinnati, you just paid T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. You paid Mike Gesicki. Your defense is ready for an overhaul. You're going to have a lot of high draft picks to rebuild that defense as you get through this Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Mike Gesicki financial window. So the Bengals may have an offer on the table from the Bears, but they may go ahead and say, we don't want to take your offer, Chicago, because you might have two very low picks next year, and we need two high picks.
Yeah, and that's kind of the opposite of what the Raiders did with Khalil Mack, right? They gambled on Chicago not taking the jump, and Chicago did take the jump, so that's why they picked Chicago before. I mean, listen, y'all, would we like Trey Hendrickson? Duh. Yeah. He's defensive player of the year, top 5 each of the last few years. He's worked with Dennis Allen before. He's super successful. In terms of money, in terms of draft capital, could they make it work? I don't know. That's the debate here. The other part too is, I know D end is one of the big needs. People talk about that in running back and safety. I think we really dismissed Dayo Odengbo a lot. He got paid, y'all. They brought him in for a reason. I don't think that you pay I think it was $17.5 million or something per year for Dayo to have him be DN3 behind Trey Hendrickson. If they were going to go the Trey Hendrickson route, they probably would have done this earlier. To me, I think they might get a mid-level D end to rotate in with Daniel Hardy and Austin Booker. But to me, I don't think the big move is coming. It would be fun, but I just don't really see it coming. So I think the money left over will be some middle tier veteran will get signed. Maybe someone else will get cut training camp. Who knows? Signing draft picks and then just having some money for in-season moves in case an injury happens.
Well, and the other thing to keep in mind is this. So based on his current contract, Trey Hendrickson is the 11th highest paid defensive end in the league. Montez Sweat is 8th highest paid in the league. Okay. Now, if we're going to compare edge rushers based off pure production alone, Myles Garrett's making $40 million a year. I think Myles Garrett has earned the $40 million a year. Max Crosby's making $35. Nick Bosa's making $34. Okay. Brian Burns is making, and Josh Hines Allen are making 28, and then TJ Watt's also making 28.
Is Danielle Hunter making 32, or did I have that wrong?
He's making 35.6.
35.6.
But here's the thing. So Trey Hendrickson's making $21 million a year. Montez Sweat is making $24.5 million a year. Montez Sweat also heading into his third season with the Bears, but really the second year of his contract extension, which I believe with Montez Sweat, it also lines up with the current Caleb Williams window through 2027. Now, if we're comparing this stuff off of production alone, I mean, who the hell should be making $21 million a year based off past production? Who should be making $24 million a year? If you're to flip the contracts, Trey Hendrickson should be the guy making $24 million a year. So when Trey Hendrickson's out there and is just like making all these public comments about Sharks and whatnot, I mean, the guy's comments are justified because the guy is underpaid. The question is,
well, sorry. From what I heard, they offered him like 27 or 28 a year. It's like he should get offered 35 a year. Like, what are we talking about?
He should at least be the number 2, I guess, edge rusher. I'm sorry, the second highest paid edge rusher in the league at this point. It's also worth noting this, right? So in terms of where the Bears are at, I mean, would this really be a team that would want to have Montez Sweat under contract, Trey Hendrickson under contract, big deals, Dayo Dingbo under contract on what was a pretty significant free agent deal, plus some of the other additions that this team has made, such as Javon Dexter possibly moving to edge, Grady Jarrett inside. Like, it's going to be a very expensive O-line, D-line room if you do manage to fit Trey Hendrickson on the books. But I go back and forth on this thing because I'm like, listen, sounds great, but again, at the end of the day, this isn't Madden, and we're not playing this video game here. You can just add whoever you want to because you can turn the salary cap feature off. And for the Dennis Allen, Trey Hendrickson crowd out there, look, your thought process and your points are super valid, but is it realistic? Because you can have validity, but if it's not realistic, then it may be something that just does not make any sense at all for the Bears.
Yeah, I mean, I struggle with trying to figure out if the Bears could somehow afford a contract like that. I know that the Eagles can do things. Now I would be for it, y'all, if you think about the window that we're in, right? The Caleb rookie contract window. You signed Tuni. You got the line pretty much figured out besides left tackle, but you have good options there, in my opinion. So to me, I think a move like this would make sense if you didn't have Dayo, but I don't know. Either way, it's something to kind of monitor to see what we have moving forward here. The other thing, man, that dropped that we have to talk about is the schedule came out. Now, again, we knew the opponents, okay? And I already have a gripe, Usayd, okay? And again, this is just the team to the north of us. Here's the gripe. And again, this is not schedule makers. This is just, it rotates, and this is how it works. The Bears play at Washington again, at Baltimore, at Cincinnati, at Philly. Meanwhile, Green Bay has all 4 of those teams at home. And it's like, how convenient is that? The 4 hardest opponents that we both have, non-division wise, Chicago's on the road, Green Bay's at home. Meanwhile, I think they have like New Orleans, Pittsburgh, the Giants, and I can't remember the other one. The Cowboys or something, like on the road. It's like, oh, the easy teams on the road and the tough teams at home. Like, how nice is it to be a Green Bay fan? But either way, man, what are your thoughts on the schedule release video, all that stuff?
Okay, so full disclosure, and I think I tweeted this out, but the schedule release video last year where they used Lane Tech's campus and the whole like school thing was by far much better. This one was actually like this one I question who the hell decided to formulate this idea, which that is a discussion that we shall have to have at a later time when we are not recording. But okay, so the other thing is this, right, is I love the way that the schedule lines up because to your point about they got to go on the road and play in Washington, and then they got to go on the road and play in Philly, and Philly's obviously the game after Black Friday. And then all of a sudden, you know, San Francisco, again, you don't know what they're going to look like, but the Bears got to go on the road for that. And then back-to-back weeks, you know, they're playing Baltimore and Cincinnati, which, a little bit of a note here. Okay, so from week 6 to week 9, that 4-week stretch, the Bears are at Washington versus New Orleans, at Baltimore, at Cincinnati. Now, first of all, I love the fact that the Bears are on the road for these 4 games. And why? Because Baltimore, Cincinnati, Philly, as well as when we look at a team such as San Francisco, right? The reality of it all is this. So Washington, the Ravens, Cincinnati, Philly, those 4 teams. And I will throw San Francisco in there because Kyle Shanahan teams are always well coached. Mm-hmm. You want to go on the road and you want to play those teams because all those games line up at a critical point in the schedule, which is basically, hey, the Bears are going to come out and they're going to freaking prove someone wrong. And if this is a team that's going to be taken seriously, then you beat good teams like that on the road. That is effectively what you do in their own home stadium, because those end up being these major confidence boosters and this sort of ability of a roster that is really good on paper right now to start realizing that it's not just a good roster and a good team. It can be a great roster. It can be a great team with the proper structure and consistency around it. So as I sit here and I kind of look at this thing, yeah, does it suck that, 3 or 4 weeks between October 13th and November 2nd, the Bears have to go ahead and, they're playing on the road in Washington, Baltimore, and Cincinnati. Yeah, that sucks, but give me those three opponents in a 4-week stretch every single time. You know why? Because after that, it does get a little bit easier. You got the Giants, the Vikings, and the Steelers for 3 games. So this ain't me saying that the Bears can rattle off 6 or 7 straight wins, but looking at the schedule and some of the big changes that have taken place, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a stretch this year where they do rattle off 6 or 7 straight wins.
Yeah, and it's tough because we are Bears fans. Okay, looking through this lens, and it is a tough schedule, but I don't fear a ton of teams. Philly, I think that's like auto loss, depending on how the tush push rule goes around here, y'all. But there's a few things that I think are interesting to line up. So first off, if you look at the schedule, y'all, we start off at home. For the second week, we're going to start right there, September 14th, all the way until November 2nd. And actually, we could just say November 8th because it's the day before the next game. The Bears only have 2 home games. So the bye week's in there. There's a ton of games in there. So it's at Detroit, home against Dallas, at Vegas, at Washington, home against New Orleans, at Baltimore, at Cincy. It's a lot of at. Now, if you look at the schedule in general, the Bears have 8 home games, 9 away games. So they're already going to be on the road a little bit more than normal. And that hopefully will offset next year. And then how they finish with 3 or 4 at home, which is nice. Another thing I want to point out, because we're going to get into the win-loss thing of this, y'all, because there's more to it. We'll go more in depth, I'm sure, in future episodes. But the one thing I do like, and I know some people are like, you play Green Bay 2 out of 3 weeks. But let's think about this, y'all, okay? We have a new interior O-line, a new head coach, new defensive coordinator, a lot of new going on. Loveland, he's got to get healthy, get ready. You've got Braxton, he's got to get a little time to get healthy. Caleb's got to get rapport with everything. Like I don't know that's going to be flowing right away. I hope it does, but maybe not. So Minnesota and Detroit right away. Yes, that's not ideal. But that's Dallas, Vegas, bye. So really a month, 5 weeks into the season, okay, we probably should get it clicking. And then it's that stretch that you talked about, Usayd. But at the end of the year, you got Green Bay twice, San Francisco, and then home against Detroit. So I would say those are 4 of your hardest games besides I would say Baltimore, Cincy, and then you could say Washington and Detroit early in the year. But 4 hard games right at the end of the year when finally we have things clicking, you would think they would be like an optimal level of producing. To me, I think that's pretty ideal. Because it used to be, hey, we play Green Bay right away week 1. Most of the time it's on the road and the Bears are just, set up for failure when we're, new quarterback or new this or whatever this lets them develop a little bit. So I like that part of the schedule. And in terms of rest, which is something I'll look more into in the future, y'all, but the Bears play Washington after they have a bye week. So they'll have one more week to game plan, one more week to get ready in terms of rest, in terms of veterans with little, bumps and bruises along the way. They do play one team out of a bye, so on the other end, so it's not a big advantage. They play another team that will have 3 days rest extra than Chicago, and then 3 other games where they have one less rest day, and the Bears have another game where they have 2 more days of rest. And one of those, I think, would be the Green Bay game, because Chicago plays on a Friday, right? And then they play Green Bay the next week, unless Green Bay plays on Thanksgiving. But like, that's how it is. Like, there's these little rest advantages. From what I've seen statistically, Usayd, if you have 2 or more rest days than your opponent, your probabilities increase by 5% of winning that game.
Yeah, it does look like Green Bay is playing on Thanksgiving. They'll actually be traveling to Detroit. So that, according to your point, right, like, sort of does work out in the Bears' favor here. But, okay, the other part I love about the schedule is that, first off, the league backloaded these games intentionally against Green Bay. And the reason being is that one of them's on a Saturday night. But the other big thing is that the league wants the Bears to be good by week 14 when the Bears are traveling to Lambeau.
Well, even 13. Mm-hmm. It's the prime standalone game against the Eagles.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, which I got a bit of a hot take on that game in just a moment. But the league wants the Bears to play Green Bay in the back half of this season. And the reason being is because, you know what? You look at the Bears, final 5 games? You got Green Bay twice, the Browns, San Francisco, and then Detroit. Those are 3 out of those 5 games right there have obviously implications for who ends up winning the division. This is the first time in forever that the league's projecting the Bears to be good, so that's why the Green Bay games are backloaded. Detroit is there to finish up the season, which again could potentially be for the division. And then the other big thing to keep in mind is that last year, I understand, was a down year for San Francisco, but San Francisco just paid Brock Purdy a nice little amount. And so San Francisco's also thinking that, hey, maybe, just maybe, we need to go ahead and we need to be really freaking good this year because we're going all in on our quarterback, which means that that's another game that's going to have very sort of late season NFC seeding playoff implications, which, by the way, if this proposal goes through at the owners meeting of strictly seeding 1 to 7, I mean, based on record, I first off think it is a very good idea, because then those teams that do win 14 games, like I think it was the Vikings last year that got shunned out of that number 1 spot by or something, or the top seed by whatever it was. This is good for the league in terms of competitive equity. Now, getting to the Philly Bears game, so you remember, 7 to 8 years ago at this point when the Rams were in town? It was that 2018 Sunday night game, right? So it's supposed to be like a 12 o'clock kickoff, and then the Bears and Rams were both good, and they're like, all right, let's take the highest powered offense, the highest powered defense, kick out the Bengals, and I think Browns it was playing on Sunday night that year. Let's put the Bears and Rams on Sunday night. And then the Bears came out in front of America and upset everybody and upset the Rams, which pissed a lot of people off. This game has that sort of potential for me, this game against Philly. Like, you've got the team that everyone expects to be really good in the Super Bowl champion Eagles. And then you've got the team that is a sleeping giant in the Bears. Let's put those 2 teams on national television as a standalone game, as the only game on in this window. This game has that type of vibe to me where, you're going to be on the edge of your seat. It's going to be intense. We're going to be going back and forth in terms of this could happen. But I'm all for that. Like this is what that Bears-Eagles games remind me of.
Yeah, no, that's fair. A fun side note to the Rams Chicago game, if people don't know. So the Rams ended up going to the Super Bowl that year after the Bears upset them, and they lost. And New England honestly embarrassed them. It wasn't a big blowout, but the offense couldn't do anything. And that was with Todd Gurley, when he was like offensive player of the year. Jared Goff was awesome, etc. So what happened is Vic Fangio, y'all, again, Chicago Bears legend, defensive coordinator, got a new game plan together, and they had, because the Rams, if you guys don't remember, they were real big kind of starters of that outside zone boot play action, and play action off of that was big with them. So they stretched your defensive line out. What Chicago did is they had 6 defenders at the line. Not if they had 5 D linemen or not, but they were 6 wide, and they only had Roquan behind it, and so that didn't let them flow as well. So really, it punched it down, and they couldn't run the ball well. And then Jared Goff threw some picks and took some chances, which he shouldn't have done. But Vic knew Goff was young and would get frustrated and wanted to take chances. So anyways, just some fun X's and O stuff. All right, Usayd, let's get into this schedule, man. Okay, let's get some win-losses. I got a pen. I got some paper, man. Let's do some predictions. Okay.
Well, okay. So, other quick note here as we talk about Vic Fangio. You know who's going to be the one of the defensive coordinators for that Black Friday game? Vic Fangio. So there's a ton more intrigue there, but let's get into some of these win-loss predictions, dude, because if I'm being honest, we're going to kind of speed through this because we both got to get out of this place, but I'm going to tell you right now, looking at the first 4 games, you got versus Minnesota.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Monday Night Football. We have 2 games this week, this year, y'all. Again, we talked about the Friday standalone game with the Eagles, and then there's a Saturday standalone game with the Packers. So there's 4 primetime games, which is nice. No Thursday night games. So anyways, go ahead, you say. I think that's important to note.
It is, which I'm also not very happy that I have to wait until Monday night to watch the Bears. Usually when that happens, I do tend to be a little bit annoyed, but whatever. Okay. All right. So here's the deal. First 4, you've got versus Minnesota, at Detroit, versus Dallas, and then at Las Vegas. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and say the Bears come out of this stretch 3-1. Okay. I say 3-1 simply because the division's changed a lot. You're going to have a rookie quarterback starting in JJ McCarthy. The Lions obviously are going to be in the phase of figuring out their identity. The Cowboys also have a new head coach, and then the Raiders have a new head coach as well, which I understand Pete Carroll's established, but he's new to the Raiders. I do think the Bears come out of this stretch 3-1. Now, of the 3-1, I'm going to go ahead and say this. I think the Bears start out 2-0. They make a little bit of a statement here and say, hey, we're going to go 2-0 against the NFC North.
Which surprise game do you have them losing there then?
I would say the Dallas game is one that could go back and forth. But the only reason I say that is because Brian Schottenheimer was the OC there, and he's now the head coach. And so he's clearly got a chemistry with Dak Prescott. But I do think that the Cowboys are a team that was just marred by injuries last year. I mean, people say the Cowboys suck, but they're relevant for the regular season.
Yeah, they are, especially early in the season. I also have them 3-1. I'm a little chalky, man. I'm gonna have them losing at Detroit, which I know is going to be a big game. I'm surprised this one is not a primetime game. Ben Johnson going back to Detroit. It's surprising. But it's, again, early in the year. Chicago's still figuring it out. And plus, Detroit is still a monster, and they'll have Aiden Hutchinson back. So that's my loss. All right. Then there's the bye week. And then it's at Washington, Monday Night Football, you said. Who do you got?
I'm going to go with the Bears in this one, surprisingly. I do think that this new look Bears team is going to go ahead and going to surprise a lot of people. I'm also going to go ahead and say this. So to your point about week 2 not being on Monday Night Football, a primetime game, that's what the league's saving the end of the season for, right? Because Detroit's coming to Chicago in week 18. So there's that. Who do you have winning this next one?
So I've got, with Washington, I also have a win, but mine is a little bit based in math. So again, I talked about the rest advantage. The Bears are going to be coming out of a bye week. They'll be rested up. They'll have more to game plan for Washington. And I would say they'd be pretty hungry after what happened last year. So that's why I have that one to win. I know Washington's a good team, y'all, but when you have an entire week to be more healthy than the other team and to prepare for them, you're going to perform better. Then the next game is home against New Orleans. I have that as a win. I don't think that one's going to be close.
That's going to be a win for sure. I mean, I expect Tyler Show to start. Kellen Moore, year 1's going to be figuring everything out as head coach in New Orleans. It's definitely going to be a win. That right there will be the signature Dennis Allen revenge game, which we didn't even talk about how many revenge games the Bears have on the schedule this year, man. Okay. Yeah. All right. Then we've got weeks 8 and 9. Okay. So week 8 obviously becomes the Bears are at Baltimore. Week 9, they're at Cincinnati. The Bears lose to the Ravens here, to me, and I think they come away with a last-second win in Cincinnati, which conveniently ends up being the Devin Duvernay revenge game in week 8.
Wow, Devin Duvernay revenge game. I am going to go a little bit opposite here. I'm going to have 2 straight losses at Cincy, well, at Baltimore and at Cincy. And then I'm going to give you the next 2 games here. So then we're home against the Giants. I have that as a W. I know that there's probably going to be a surprise loss. I like to always have one of those, but I just can't do it with like New Orleans or the Giants. And then the next game is at Minnesota, and I have that one as a loss. So right here, this stretch, I have the Bears losing 3 out of 4 games.
Okay, so let's recap here. What am I sitting at? What are you sitting at as we get into this?
So hold on, you have to give me your game against New York Giants. Who are you having there?
So I think the Bears are going to pummel the Giants, and Brian Dable's going to get embarrassed. I do think the Bears lose to Minnesota here on the road. That's okay. I ultimately see the Bears as splitting some of these division games.
Yep. So currently I have the Bears at 4 losses, and you have the Bears at 3 losses. Heading into week 12, home against Pittsburgh. Usayd, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and say this. This is going to be the one home game that the Bears end up losing. I know that some people say this is the worst roster of the Mike Tomlin era, but I also look at this thing and I say the thing with Mike Tomlin is he always figures it out. Like Mike Tomlin's a frustrating coach and frustrating head of a team that teams hate playing against, because no matter how bad you think they are going to be, he's always able to figure it out. So I do think the Bears lose this one to the Steelers, and that to me is the surprise loss.
Yeah, no, and that definitely is fair. I'm gonna have this as a win, just because that would be the Bears losing 4 out of 5 games, and I don't see this team going on a streak like that. 3 out of 4, I think, is just really bad. So I can't go 4 out of 5. But I do have them losing the next game, which is at Philly, Usayd. Who do you have in that game?
I mean, I think I made it very clear who's going to win that one. So I'm going to pick the Bears in this one in a Black Friday upset.
Okay. All right. Black Friday upset. And then the next game is at Green Bay. I'm going to let you roll, and that one's going to be on a Saturday.
Yeah, that's a Saturday. That is a away game. I'm going to say Caleb Williams goes 2-0 at Lambeau Field. His career record is 2-0 at Lambeau Field. The Bears win in an upset on Saturday night.
Yeah, I have Green Bay, the Bears winning at Green Bay, beating Green Bay as well. I'm just going to say this right now, y'all. I have wins the next 3 games. At Green Bay, Cleveland, and home against Green Bay. And listen, y'all, I know that's sweeping Green Bay. I look at their team. And again, you can call me whatever you want to call me. I don't think they're that good. I think they're a pretty overrated team. I think they beat up on some pretty bad teams last year. They went 1-5 in the division. They should have went 0-6. I mean, the Bears weren't good last year, and the Bears were in those games and should have won both of them. And the Bears improved significantly, while I think Green Bay stayed pretty neutral. I don't think they improved a ton. And that's even if they do have Jair Alexander back. So I have them winning the next 3 in a row. So at Green Bay, home against Cleveland, which I think, again, I can't even surprise win that one, and home against Green Bay.
I was going to go in the same boat as you, so I do think the Bears win those 3 games as well to start looking at the final 2 games of the season. So before we get to week 17 and 18, what am I sitting at? What are you sitting at?
All right, so let's go here. So we have, do I have this correct? Maybe I missed one here. So you had, I'm going back to 12, you had winning at Pittsburgh, winning at Philly, winning at Green Bay, winning at Cleveland, and winning home against Green Bay. Is that right?
Well, I had a loss at Pittsburgh, so.
Oh, never mind. I got to go back here. I had that one wrong. Okay. I was off 1 week here. Okay. So I have you with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 losses. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 5 losses as well. Wow. We are very close here.
Exactly, we are. So I think, the last 2 here, I mean, I'm going to say the Bears lose to San Francisco, give them 6 losses, but then they beat Detroit at home. So they basically, go 5-1 in the division this year. That's enough to get the Bears the NFC North crown. That's also, I think, enough to get the Bears into hosting a home playoff game, depending on, again, how the seeding and all that stuff shakes out. But this is, to me, a 6-loss team is a wild card team to me at best, which is, I certainly see this team being a minimum wild card team.
And I actually I have it the same way. Losing at San Francisco, I think that's still a dangerous team, y'all. They were very injured last year. And winning week 18 against Detroit as well, but actually for a different reason, is I think Detroit could rest their players that game. That definitely could happen. And then Chicago would be full strength against a team that I think they would be playing probably with a bye, or they already have a playoff spot locked up and they don't have a lot to play for.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be very interesting because the thing with the NFC North is this, right? Is it's like 3 of the 4 teams have undergone significant changes this offseason. The Vikings have had a ton of turnover. So have the Lions. So have the Bears. Green Bay really hasn't had that much turnover. So here they are banking on basically Jordan Love and Matt LaFleur to once again carry the torch for them. So they're hoping Jordan Love gets better and can kind of keep them relevant. But I guess, it's all stuff here. We'll just have to go and see. Anyways, we are going to get out of this place. You got anything else before we close this thing out, dude?
Nope. It was fun, man.
It was, yeah. Make sure you guys are leaving comments, like, subscribe, and give the podcast 5 stars wherever you listen to it. Give us a good review. Subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. If you want us talking about a specific topic, put that in the comments as well. We'd be more than happy to do that. Make sure you are following us on Twitter at Usayd Koshul _Nick Whalen at Halas Beat. We're gonna be at it. We're gonna get out of this place. We will have another episode for you guys on Thursday. Get back to a little bit more normalcy here. So till then, ladies and gentlemen, bear down. Have a great Tuesday night and Wednesday. We'll see you guys next time.